Speaker, government agencies are required to conduct procurement in a fair manner. To guide agencies, the Ministry of Finance provides templates with contractual terms and conditions which set out the responsibilities of the parties. These templates are developed in consultation with key sector agencies to reflect industry norms, particularly for major categories like construction and ICT. For example, the Standard Consultancy Agreement, or SCA, used by the government agencies for construction-related consultancy services state that agencies will pay for additional services not covered by the contract.
Mr. Ang.
Thank you, Ministers, for the reply. I would like to first declare that I am the CEO of Strike Premier, a company that from time to time participates in government tenders. I understand that the government departments have the duty to safeguard public money and not overpay private companies that provide services through government contracts. At the same time, the government also has a responsibility to support SMEs, especially during the current climate of economic uncertainty. Thus, I hope the Minister will consider my supplementary question to remove or tweak some three common clauses in government contracts or tenders that SMEs find hard to comply with. Firstly, the clause on unlimited liability, regardless of contract value, similar to the clause required by SUSS, as reported in the press. Such a clause can be onerous to our SMEs and can even bankrupt them. Secondly, some other clauses in the government contracts have limited milestone payments. Very often, government agencies will only make the bulk of the payments at the end of the project, creating potential cash flow problems for SMEs participating in government's tender. And thirdly, some government tenders require contractors to make unlimited changes to design requirements without additional payment, similar to those required by SUSS. So it's in a tender documents that say that they will make changes, and the changes will not be paid, even though as what ministers say that what is not stated in the tender is supposed to be paid, but because tenders say that it will not be paid in the first place. So any design change will cost money, and someone has to pay for it. There's no free lunch. Thus, I hope Minister could advise the various government departments consider tweaking such demanding clauses. Thank you.
Minister Indranee.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for his supplementary question, which raises a couple of important points, and let me address them in turn. The first is to make a distinction between SUSS and government. Strictly speaking, SUSS is an autonomous university. Autonomous universities are independent corporate entities and not government agencies, and this gives them the autonomy to handle operational and corporate service matters according to their own policies and procedures. Nevertheless, autonomous universities are expected to adhere to fundamental procurement principles of value for money, transparency, and open and fair competition, and we encourage them to align broadly. So I just want to make that distinction because in the particular instance that Mr. Ang is referring to, I won't go into the details, obviously, because it's between different parties, but my understanding is that that contract or those contract terms are not in exactly the same terms as the government standard contracting terms. That's the first point. Second point is that for such contracts, there are really three broad groups. One is pure government. Then there are those which are not exactly government, but like SUSS or other agencies, which are expected to follow government, but have a much broader leeway to depart or set their own terms. And then third, there's private sector. So I will come back to these three, but just let me address first the specific points or specific queries that Mr. Ang had raised. We do recognize the need to support enterprises in this economic environment, even as we continue to achieve value for money for public spending. So on the point about making unlimited design changes, I had shared earlier that under the Standard Consultancy Agreement, or SCA, which is what the government follows, and that the one that's used for construction-related consultancy services, agencies will pay for additional services not covered by the contract, such as further charges after design sign-off. Then, with respect to unlimited liability, in November 2024, we added an option in the SCA to limit consultants' contractual liability, and then, as announced by Minister for National Development, Mr. Chee Hong Tat, last month, we will be making this mandatory starting from 1st December 2025. So in other words, going forward, there will be limited liability. Though these changes have only been applied to the SCA, agencies are expected to be fair to suppliers in all their contracts, facilitated by standard contract templates, such as the Tender Lite conditions of contract. Government agencies typically make payments to their, and on the question of milestones, government agencies typically make payments to their suppliers at specified milestones during the course of the project. For instance, construction contractors are usually paid every month based on monthly progress payments. MOF has also provided agencies with guidelines for more frequent payment milestones. Besides this, government has introduced Tender Lite to simplify procurement in tenders with estimated procurement value up to $1 million. This makes it easier for businesses, especially SMEs, to access government procurement opportunities. MOF has worked closely with partners, including the Singapore Business Federation, the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises, and sector-specific trade associations to develop Tender Lite. We will continue to partner industry to look for ways to ease doing business with government. That said, Mr. Ang's SPQ raises a broader issue, which is that of fair contracting. And the government is actually encouraging the industry, especially construction industry, but across the board, to have collaborative contracting and fair clauses. The old way of approaching contracts is very much a win-lose. The lawyers on one side will want to get everything for their client. The lawyers on the other side will obviously want to do the same. But contracts for such procurement should not be win-lose. You should try to see how you can make it win-win. Because if every party has an interest, a vested interest in the contract to make it succeed, that would be better. And if it's completely one-sided, then after a while, the other side will either not want to participate or, the relationship will break down. And this needs a change of mindset. So many of the contracts out there, especially in private sector, but some which are not mandated by government, are in old standard forms. And, it's very difficult to get lawyers to shift from standard forms. They like their precedents. And my message really to the industry, especially the built environment industry, is that we are trying to effect change. That change is collaborative contracting, where it's win-win, and fair clauses. That leads to the question of what is fair. Usually that is a matter of negotiation, but it is difficult when you have parties who have uneven resources and of different sizes, which is the reason why the Standard Consultancy Agreement and other government standard contracts can and should be the base reference. You can depart from it, but that should be the standard for what is the expected norm. And government has the ability, by putting in certain clauses, to signal, firstly to practice it for ourselves, but also to signal to the market what is considered fair. And of course, if we get feedback that clauses are not fair or are too onerous, then we can always review and adjust as needed.